Hello viewers, in this video I will give you a summary of this novel, mystery novel, The Woman in White. But I would like to request you please read the original text. My explanation, my summary, it will be just a drop in the ocean. Okay? So have your own understanding, do your own research. That's it. Let's proceed to the summary. The Woman in White, it is written by William Collins and it is William Collins' fifth novel, published and written in 1859 and it sets from 1849 to 1850. I have already told you it is a mystery novel and it falls under the genre of sensation novels. I think most of you know what is mystery novel, but still let me give you brief idea. Mystery novel, it is a fiction genre where the nature of an event, usually a murder of that crime, of usually a murder or other crime, remains mysterious until the end of the story, and it is often within a close circle of suspects. Each suspect is usually provided with a credible motive and reasonable opportunity for committing the crime. So most of you might have watched many movies related to mystery. Okay, so from there too you can get the idea. Now, what is sensation novels? So since this novel falls under it, so the sensation novel, uh, it is also a literary genre of fiction that achieved peak popularity in Great Britain in the 1860s and 1870s. And its literary forebears, it included the melodramatic novels and the Newgate novels, which had focused on tales woven around criminal biographies. And it also drew on the Gothic, romance, as well as mass market genres. And the genres popularity was conjoined to an expanding book market and growth of reading public by products of the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so that is sensation novel in a very brief words. So now if we talk about a writer, then William Wilkie Collins, born on 8 January 1824 and died on 23rd September 1889. He was an English novelist and playwright known especially for The Woman in White that was published in 1859 and which was a mystery novel that we are now reading, an early sensation novel, and for the Moonstone that was published in 1868, which has been proposed as the first modern English detective novel. So that's it about the author. Now, if we talk about the theme of this novel, then morality, crime, punishment, marriage, divorce. So this kind of thing you will get. Okay. So let's try to know the characters of this novel. First character is Walter Hartright. Walter Hartright, he is a young teacher of drawing, something of an everyman character, and distinguished by a strong sense of justice. Then we have got Frederick Fairley. Frederick Fairley, he is a wealthy hypochondriac landowner, and he is the uncle of Laura Fairley. He was distinguished principally by his mock politeness toward all other characters. Next, Laura Fairley, she is Mr. Fairley's gentle, guileless, and pretty niece, and heiress and orphan. Then Marian Halcombe is Laura's elder half sister and companion. She is not as attractive, but intelligent, and she is also resourceful. She is described as one of the finest creations in all Victorian fiction by John Sutherland. Next, Annie Catterick, The Woman in White. She is an eccentric young woman, distinguished by her insistence on white clothes and illegitimate daughter of Laura's father. Next, Jane Catterick. Jane Catterick is Annie's unsympathetic mother, in league with Sir Percival Glyde in committing her daughter to the asylum, depicted as an unpleasant character. Then Vincent Gilmore, he is lawyer to the Fairleys and close friend. So that's it about the characters. Not that's it. We have more. Sir Percival Glyde, Baronet. He is Laura's fiance and then husband, able to appear charming and gracious when he wishes, but often abrasive. We got then Count Fosco, Sir Percival's closest friend. His full name is Isidore Ottavio Baldassar Fosco, a grossly fat Italian with a mysterious past. He is also an eccentric, bombastic, urban but intelligent and menacing personality. Count Fosco keeps canaries and mice as pets, and the Count greatly admires Marion for her intellect, so much so that he is willing to compromise several weak points in his plan, such as allowing Marion to retrieve Laura from the asylum for her sake. Then we got Countess Fosco. She is Laura's aunt, once a giddy girl, but now humorless and near unbroken obedience to her husband. Then we got Professor Pesca. Professor Pesca is a teacher of Italian and good friend of Walter. The professor, he finds Walter the Limerick job, introducing him to Laura and Marion, and proves to be Fosco's unexpected nemesis. So that's it about the characters. Now we will enter into the summary of this text. So Walter Hartright, we have already discussed that he is a young art teacher, and he now encounters and gives directions to a mysterious and distressed woman, dressed entirely in white, lost in London. And he is later informed by policemen that she has escaped from an asylum, that woman in white. Soon afterward, he travels to Limerick's house in Cumberland, having been hired as a drawing teacher on the recommendation of his friend Pesca, who was an Italian language teacher. The Limerick's household, it comprises the invalid Frederick Fairley and Walter's students, Laura Fairley, Mr. Fairley's niece, and Marian Halcombe, and her devoted half-sister. Walter then realizes that Laura bears an astonishing resemblance to the woman in white, who is known to the household by the name of Anne Catterick, a mentally disabled child who formerly lived near Limerick and was devoted to Laura's mother, who first dressed her in white. Over the next few months, Walter and Laura, they fell in love despite Laura's betrothal betrothal to Sir Percival Glyde, Baronet, and upon realizing this, Marian advised Walter to leave Limerick. Then Laura received an anonymous letter warning her against marrying Glyde. Then Walter also deduces that Anne has sent the letter and encounters her again in Cumberland. So he becomes convinced that Glyde originally placed Annie in the asylum. But despite the misgivings of the family lawyer over the financial terms of the marriage settlement, which will give the entirety of Laura's fortune to Glyde if she dies without leaving an heir, and Laura's confession that she loves another man, Laura and Glyde, they marry in December 1849 and travel to Italy for 6 months. Concurrently, Walter joins an expedition to Honduras. Okay. So after 6 months, Sir Percival and Lady Glyde, they returned to his house called Blackwater Park in Hampshire, accompanied by Glyde's friend, Count Fosco, married to Laura's aunt. Then Marian, at Laura's request, resides at Blackwater and learns that Glyde is in financial difficulties. Glyde then attempts to bully Laura into signing a document that would allow him to use her marriage settlement of £20,000, which Laura refused to do. Then Annie, who is now terminally ill, travels to Blackwater Park and contacted Laura, saying that she held a secret that would ruin Glyde's life. Before she could disclose the secret, then Glyde discovered their communication, and believing Laura knew his secret, became extremely paranoid and attempted to keep her held at Blackwater. So with the problem of Laura's refusal to give away her fortune and Anne's knowledge of his secret, Fosco conspired to use the resemblance between Laura and Anne to exchange their two identities. Then Sir Percival and Fosco would trick both individuals into traveling with them to London. Then Laura would be placed in an asylum under the identity of Anne, and Anne will be buried under the identity of Laura upon her imminent death. Then Marian overheard enough of the plan to understand they were conspiring against someone's life, but not any of the details. He becomes shocked by rain in her hiding place and falls ill. Then, while Marian is ill, Laura is tricked into traveling to London, and the identity switch was completed. Okay. Then Anne Catterick succumbs to her illness and is buried as Laura, while Laura is drugged and conveyed to the asylum as Anne. So that was the twist. When Marian visits the asylum hoping to learn something from Anne, then she finds Laura, who has been treated by her attendants as a deluded Anne when she protests her true identity as Laura. Then Marian bribes the nurse and Laura escapes. Meanwhile, Walter has returned from Honduras, and the three live incognito in London, making plans to restore Laura's identity. During his research, Walter also discovers that Glyda's secret was that he was illegitimate and therefore not entitled to inherit his title or property. In the belief that Walter has discovered or will discover his secret, Glyde then attempted to incinerate the incriminating documents but perishes in the flames. So now, from Anne's mother, Jane Catterick, Walter discovered that Anne never knew that Glyde's secret was. So she had only known that there was a secret around Glyde and had repeated words her mother had said in anger to threaten Glyde. So now the truth was that Glyde's mother was already married to an Irishman who had left her and was not free to remarry. While he had no problem claiming the estate, Glyde needed his parents' marriage certificate to borrow money, and he therefore went to a church in the village where his parents had lived together and where the vicar, Church of England priest who had served there, had died long ago, and added a fake marriage to the church register. Now, Mrs. Catterick helped him obtain access to the register and was rewarded with gold watch and an annual payment. Now, with the death of Glyde in a fire while attempting to destroy a duplicate of the register, the trio is safe from persecution, but they still have no way of proving Laura's true identity. Walter suspects that Anna died before Laura's trip to London, and proof of this would prove their story, but only Fosco knows the dates. Now, Walter works out from a letter he received from Mrs. Catterick's former employer that Anne was the illegitimate child of Laura's father, making her Laura's half sister. Now, on a visit to the opera with Pesca, he learns that Fosco has betrayed an Italian nationalist society of which Pesca is a high ranking member. When Fosco prepares to flee the country, Walter forces a written confession from him in exchange for safe passage from England. Laura's identity is legally restored now, and the inscription on her gravestone is replaced by that of Anne Catterick. Fosco escapes only to be killed by another agent of the society. To ensure the legitimacy of his efforts on her part, Walter and Laura have married earlier on the death of Frederick Fairley. Their son inherits Limerick. Then, if you talk about the theme, I have already told you at the beginning of this video, but still, one of the recurring themes of this novel is unequal position of married women-in-law at that time. So Laura Glyde's interests have been neglected by her uncle, and her fortune of £20,000, then an enormous sum of money, by default falls to her husband and on her death. So Collins has dedicated this novel to Brian Proctor, poet and commissioner for lunacy, and was inspired by the case of Louisa Notice, who was also abducted and imprisoned for the monetary convenience of her family. So women could be imprisoned in lunatic asylums if they became embarrassing or inconvenient to their husbands or fathers. So in addition to that, before the passage of Married Women's Property Act 1882, all of a wife's assets passed automatically to her husband. So that's it. I hope it will help you, not in a great way, but it will help you in a very subtle way. Thank you so much.